He who controls the present controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future. It has been said that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. As a child, you were told that knowledge is power. Yet what if we were to suggest that education, which is supposed to be a way to think for yourself, to develop into an autonomous individual, is actually a method to train children to become obedient workers, loyal consumers, compliant citizens, and ultimately a source of cheap labor for the ruling powers? In this video, we want to discuss the role of education in perpetuating modern slavery. We will examine how the drive to impose certain values and beliefs upon our younger generations has led us to create a system of obedience through schools. Today we're diving into a topic that hits close to home, literally. Why? Well, because in a globalized world where corporations and governments hold immense power, there's a need for a workforce that's not just skilled, but also disciplined, obedient, and unquestioning. We're rewarded when we do well and punished when we don't. Sound familiar? That's the same dynamic in most workplaces. We have math class, science class, history class, geography class, but rarely do we learn about the hidden motivations, the agendas that drove those events. We're taught about heroes and villains, good guys and bad guys. Teachers, like everyone else, are products of the system. They, too, have been shaped by the same education that we're talking about. They, too, have internalized the values, beliefs, and norms that are not necessarily our own. They're not villains, though. They're just doing their jobs, following the scripts they were taught to read. But rarely do we delve into the complexities of human actions, the gray areas that make us question who's really in control, where your curiosity is dampened, your spirit is broken, your dreams are deferred. We can challenge the status quo. We can demand a better, more equitable education for all. We need to teach our children to be thinkers, not just workers, to be inquirers, not just consumers. It should open doors, not shut them. It should empower, not pacify. Remember, true freedom is not bestowed upon us. It's earned, and the first step towards that is recognizing the chains that bind us, even the ones that are made of books and classrooms. We owe it to them, to ourselves, to our future. We must support initiatives that promote critical thinking, that encourage questioning, that celebrate intellectual curiosity. That's the world many of us have been thrust into. A world where education is not about empowerment, but about pacification. It's embedded in our everyday lives, in the classrooms, in the textbooks, in the very structure of our school systems. More vital and more conducive to the general well-being of humanity. Huxley was referring to a dystopian future, a future we've somehow slid into. It is so pervasive that we often don't even realize we are being molded into a certain kind of person, a person who accepts their place in the hierarchy, a person who doesn't question the system. It's a global phenomenon that permeates every level of schooling, from the humblest village school to the most prestigious university. Well, it's simple, really. It's about maintaining control. Let's spark a conversation, and maybe together we can rewrite the narrative of modern slavery. Your engagement helps us continue producing impactful content. Thanks for watching. It's about training people who play by the rules, who don't ask too many questions, who don't challenge the system that got them where they are. It's about the subtle ways our minds are conditioned to accept our subjugation. Support initiatives that promote critical thinking and demand a better, more equitable education for all. Remember, the first step to freedom is recognizing the chains that bind us. And in the case of imperialist education, those chains are made of textbooks, classrooms, and a curriculum that often does more to control us than to educate us. Imperialist education is one such way. It's a system that thrives on obedience, conformity, and the absence of critical thought, by shaping young minds, by indoctrinating the next generation. They ensure the continuation of their power. After all, how can we question the system that put us where we are? The irony is that this system claims to be about progress, about enlightenment, about preparing us for the modern world. Yet it does just that. It prepares us to be cogs in the machine, to be obedient workers, to be consumers who perpetuate the cycle of consumption and waste. History is presented as a tale of heroes and villains, but the kind of education we're discussing here is a diluted version, one that serves the interests of the powerful rather than the pursuit of truth. It's a system that values compliance over curiosity, obedience over inquiry. Science is taught as a set of laws to be obeyed. Even literature, with its stories of love and loss, reinforces societal norms and values. Everything is compartmentalized, making it easier to digest, easier to manage. If people are taught from a young age to obey, to conform, to not question, then they're less likely to rock the boat when they grow up. They're less likely to challenge the system that got them where they are. In a world where corporations and governments hold immense power, this kind of compliance is golden. It's what allows the privileged few to keep the majority under their thumb. This kind of education is great for those in power because it keeps us from seeing the bigger picture, from understanding how the parts fit into the whole, from realizing that someone decided to slice the pie that way for their own benefit. In the hands of the oppressors, it becomes a tool to maintain their grip on society. They use it to create a workforce that's not just efficient, but also passive, a population that doesn't ask too many questions. So instead of being places that nurture our natural curiosity, schools have become places that beat down our innate desire to ask why, to challenge the status quo. Think about it. When you have a job, whether you like it or not, you follow rules, you adhere to schedules, you take orders, you don't question the system, at least not too much. And this is exactly what imperial education does. It trains us from a young age to be good little workers. We use terms like democracy, freedom, justice without really understanding their deeper meanings, without questioning who decides what these terms stand for. These words become mantras that we chant without knowing their real tunes. It's a topic that many of us have experienced firsthand, yet have probably never really thought about in depth. We're talking about school, but what kind of education are we talking about here? Because there are different kinds. There's the education that nurtures critical thinking, that encourages questioning, that celebrates curiosity. And then there's the education that's more about memorizing, about conforming, about swallowing information without really chewing on it. Yeah, that place we all went to, or some of us still go to. Furthermore, we will delve into how this process begins from childhood and continues throughout adulthood, where even questioning authority can be seen as wrong. So let's dive into it. Welcome back to our channel, a space for critical thinking and dialogue, but let's think beyond the textbooks and the classrooms. What if I told you that the education we've all been through might be more than just about imparting knowledge? What if it's also a tool for shaping obedient citizens, a silent weapon in the fight for minds? Now, don't get me wrong, education is important. It opens doors, broadens perspectives, and equips us with the tools to navigate life. In today's world, the second type of education, which can be called imperialist education, is becoming more prevalent. We learn to sit still, to listen, to follow instructions. Here's another point worth pondering. Schools are also about categorizing, about putting things into neat little boxes. Take history, for example. We learn about wars, battles, treaties, all these events that supposedly shaped our world. Then there's the language we use. Our words, our very vocabulary is shaped by education. And it's not just about what we learn. It's also about who teaches us. It is important to understand that the kind of education we are discussing here is not limited to one country or one time period. Now you might be wondering why is this kind of education so widespread? Why do those in power invest so much in controlling our schools? Think about it. You see, education has the power to either liberate or enslave, depending on who's holding the reins. Imagine growing up in a world where everything you learn, everything you're taught reinforces the idea that you're inferior, that your voice doesn't matter. So what can we do? How do we break free from this cycle? Well, for starters, we can question everything. This is not about bashing education. It's about reforming it, about reclaiming it for ourselves. Education should be a ladder, not a cage. The story of modern slavery isn't just about chains and shackles. It's about the invisible bonds that keep millions trapped. From the earliest grades, we're trained to be docile workers, to accept rules without question, to memorize facts without understanding the bigger picture. This is not to say that learning is bad. Knowledge is indeed power. Critical thinking is often discouraged, brushed aside as unnecessary, even dangerous. The problem with this kind of education is that it's insidious. As Aldous Huxley once wrote, the whole aim of a new education is to replace the restrictive and constricting morality of the Victorian age with a morality that is more expansive. In a world where corporations and governments hold extraordinary power, this kind of education is not just about shaping individuals, it's about creating a compliant populace, a workforce that perpetuates the status quo. To truly dismantle the chains of modern slavery, we must start at the very foundation. Question everything. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with friends who might find value in it too.